welcome to this wild and wacky Wednesday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco, coming to you today live as we do every day, Monday to Friday from noon to 1 Eastern, from the Question Tequila Studios. Today we were at Newsmax headquarters in Midtown Manhattan, but down at the good old New York Stock Exchange, the markets are rebounding well today. As I've been mentioning, I think 27,000 is the next number where we have to break through some resistance. A close the end of this week above 27 could be great. Market right now, the Dow Jones at 26,870, just nibbling up on that 27,000 number, and things are looking good. Chairman Powell is before Congress, Senate today, talking about some of his monetary policy, and the market is watching that very closely. In yesterday's Cashin's comments from famed New York Stock Exchange floor Governor Arthur Cashin, he talked about how there was 100% certainty of a rate cut at the end of July in the bond market. So anything other than that could be bad news for bonds. So keep your eyes on that. Stay nimble, stay alert. Markets tend to trade a little thinner, unsportsmanlike and misbehaving after their win. It's a great victory for the country, and it's great to honor our American athletes. And there's a big ticker tape parade, so all the women that usually come on Women Wednesday are I guess at the parade. But we have a huge show in store for you today. Bitcoin at 12.8, hanging around that level, which some consolidation is good. And it's always good when I'm joined by my co-host and the managing editor of Liquid Lunch, Frank Morano. Frankie, good afternoon.
Hello there, John. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast, and good morning to those of you in the rest of the country. There's a lot to get to, and we have an action-packed show for you. And some of that is going to be covered in today's Frankly Speaking. All right. Now, we've been trying to figure out for quite some time exactly how many American citizens are in the country. Well, apparently, that's far too controversial a question for some, including New York State Attorney General Letitia James, including Chief Justice John Roberts, and including the ACLU. So this legal battle went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court punted. They allowed the lower court decision to stand and said, no, how dare you ask a question that's been asked on Census for most of the time that we've been a country. You can't have any right to know how many people are in this country and are citizens. But yesterday, this legal battle took a whole new turn. Now, first, understand what happened here. After the Supreme Court did what they did, Donald Trump did something very presidential, very statesmanlike, very much in keeping with the tradition of presidents like Lincoln and Jackson and others. He essentially said, yeah, you know what? I'm the president. The Department of Commerce is a federal agency, and if I have to, I'm going to defy the Supreme Court. Can you imagine what life would be like in this country today if Abraham Lincoln said, you know what? Just because the Supreme Court says that black people are property, like they did in the Dred Scott decision, well, the Supreme Court spoke, so we're just going to let that stand. The president, to his credit, is pushing on with this battle to get the census question on the ballot. But yesterday, on the census, yesterday, this is a whole new ballgame. Yesterday, a judge actually told the lawyers for the Trump administration that they're not allowed to leave the case. Understand what happened. The Trump administration wanted new lawyers to argue the case, and the judge said no. Jeffrey Epstein, when he goes to trial, if he ends up going to trial, is going to choose any lawyer that he wants. Well, apparently Jeffrey Epstein had the good wisdom and the good sense not to join the Trump administration because the Trump administration is not allowed to choose their own lawyers. The president tweeted about it yesterday. This is what he said last night. He said the following. And believe it or not, you will see it in mere moments. So now the Obama-appointed judge on the census case, are you a citizen of the United States, won't let the Justice Department use the lawyers that it wants to use. Could this be a first? Friends, understand, everybody that calls Donald Trump an authoritarian, a dictator, the president is being held hostage by the judiciary of this country and not even allowed to choose his own lawyers. This is embarrassing, and it's another example of the judicial supremacy that's been allowed to take root under both Republicans and Democrats. John, we may never know how many citizens are in this country.
Judicial activism is on the rise. These judges want to make rules and laws from the bench. That's what we have legislation for. The statute is very clear that the Commerce Secretary, if he wants to add a question to the census, it's his full authority to do it. Just has to give a reason why. He doesn't have to explain the reason 50 different ways. If he has a reason, he doesn't have to say it's not a good enough reason. So, John Roberts is, to me, acting like an activist, voting with the liberals on the bench, and then you go to the lower court. Now, what person is told what lawyer they must use? I've never even heard of such a thing. Doesn't make any sense.
He didn't have a good enough excuse as to why they wanted to switch lawyers. So, big thank you again to George W. Bush for giving us John Roberts. Those of you that voted for George Bush, I hope you guys are proud of yourselves.
Yep, John Roberts seems to have decided that he's going to be that middle moderate, and sometimes he's going to go here, sometimes he's going to go there. We didn't. I'm sure he wasn't appointed to Chief Justice so that he would be the swing vote and keep things honest. We're not asking him to keep things honest. We're asking him.
I'd like him to keep things honest.
Yeah, but it's almost like he's going the other way to make the court seem fair. And based on how he was vetted and why he's in there, he should be voting with the conservatives.
Well, look, he should vote how he wants to vote. I don't understand, and law professors don't understand, his rationale in either the gerrymandering case or the census citizenship question case. But John Roberts is doing what Anthony Kennedy made a passion of doing for so many years, which is he's grandstanding. He clearly is enjoying his newfound role as the swing vote. There's no overarching judicial philosophy. I mean, there's no way that this same guy who voted the way that he did in the Citizens United case, and then voted the way that he did in the gay marriage case, and then voted the way that he did with respect to the gerrymandering case, can be the same person. I mean, you can love Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you can love Clarence Thomas, or you could hate those guys. Well, because
you got to see her to love her, don't you? I mean, does she even exist? She's working
she does exist.
From home, and she's phoning in.
For all the criticisms of Thomas.
When was the last time anyone saw her in person live?
About a month ago, she was at the opera.
Okay,
and she sees the justices regularly during the session. I mean, now they're in recess. But for all the criticisms of Ginsburg or Thomas, at least there's an overarching judicial philosophy that you can understand that's at least somewhat coherent. With Chief Justice Roberts, it seems about grandstanding and proving his statement to Donald Trump correct, which is there are no Obama judges or Trump judges, there are just judges. And clearly, I think what we're seeing in this citizenship case is Trump was right and Roberts was wrong.
Write your congressman, call your senator, annoy the heck out of them, because doesn't it sound sick to you that the government of the United States cannot ask on a census, are you a citizen? To me, it's sick. This is not a hard question. This is not probing very deep. Are you a citizen? We need to know how many people are actually here.
Well, and if you don't want to answer it, don't answer it. What's going to happen? The census police are going to come and arrest you? You know, that's my advice for you. Don't answer.
I would say most people who are here illegally, when the census guy, they see a government worker at the front door with a clipboard in their hand, they're not answering the door anyway. So, I think that's a good bet. Why? Let's ask the people that are willing to answer, are you a citizen? Then get a handle on how many people we have that are citizens that the government is supposed to take care of. And, talking about the government taking care of people, Frank, I want to talk about this. I want to vomit when I turn on any of these left-wing channels, okay? Because all they're talking about now, every day, all they're talking about is the poor children. Mika and Joe this morning in the detention centers. This child said that the water tasted like chlorine. These poor children. There are over 500,000 U.S. American citizen children who have been separated from their parents because their parents are incarcerated. And most of these people that are here are supposedly looking for asylum because they're running from their country because they fear for their life and safety. So I understand the detention centers may be crowded because the economy is so good that everyone wants to come here right now. But I have a feeling that if you're escaping a country on the premise that you're afraid for your life and safety. If you're crowded in a detention center and you're getting food and water in America, you're in a lot better place than where you were supposedly running from. So these one or two cases, now there's a girl supposedly is alleging that when she was patted down, she felt uncomfortable. Over a dozen women have said the same exact thing about Joe Biden, by the way, and he's leading the polls right now as the top Democratic fondler. And what do you mean? That's what?
I'll save it. I'll save it.
I'm just saying, there's multiple. Okay, maybe a dozen haven't alleged it, but there's multiple videos out there of good old Joe sniffing up every woman he can get his hands on.
So far, it looks like one Bernie Sanders supporter with a political...
Like a dozen women's ears, and he's patting their shoulders and petting their face, and it looks a little strange to me. Well, and he's the #1 contender on the left. And, we'll have Rich Valdez on a little later on. He's thinking about taking AOC. Maybe he'll have some keen insights on that. And then, of course, we have Tom Keogh coming on to talk about Trump's economy, what's happening with the Fed, how the Fed decision this week or comments this week can have a big effect on the market. And really, when we talk to Tom from Kingsbridge Strategies, I want to kind of get into how all this bluster about 20 candidates, now Swalwell's out, Steyer's in, and all this other crap, it comes down to the economy, stupid, and the economy's raging. So we're going to talk about all that and more. Frankie, we'll have to mix it up. We'll have a righty and a lefty duke it out.
A ton of crypto news. Your friend, the Crypto Cowboy, is going to be here as well.
That's right. Drew Taylor, the Crypto Cowboy from the Wild West Crypto Show, will be joining us a little past the bottom of the hour, 12:30 Eastern here in New York. There's Drew. And, of course, we'll be talking about the ABBC coin, still moving its way into the U.S. Their management is here in America, and we plan on having them on later this week or maybe early next week. Arbin Kane and the whole team is here in New York with a whole bunch of great things happening. And if you're keeping your eye on that, overstock.com, the stock is still trading nicely. I believe there's a short squeeze out there. Keep your eyes peeled and stay nimble on that. Stay right there, because coming up right after this, we're talking about Trump's economy. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV.